Today's conversation explores the inner life of founders and the pressures that come from building something from the ground up. Many business owners work at a relentless pace, which gives them the clarity and the emotional imbalance sometimes to maintain. Oliver's built a practice around helping people reconnect with a purpose to operate from a healthier state of mind. His work blends practical insight with a deeper understanding of human behavior, which makes his perspective valuable for anyone steering a business. We look at resilience, intuition, habits, and sustain a long-term performance. This is a chance for founders to view leadership through a more grounded and human lens. Oliver, please tell us a bit about yourself, what you do, and which space do you work in?
Well, very simply, I work in the world of the unknown and the unseen, and that is the energy around you. So one of the things that I've developed over many, many years of training is to be able to see all the stuff that's floating around people. That's the good stuff and the bad stuff.
That sounds interesting. It's energy, right? So you talk about energy. How do you see someone's energy? What's the vibe you get off people on that front?
Well, I generally don't look, because most people have a lot of gremlins in their space, a lot of negativity, a lot of sometimes hostile things that are in their energetic space. But when I do tend to see that. It's like someone turns a light switch on, and then I get to see all the stuff that's floating around them. And that's where my speciality comes in, because I help people clear that trauma, that drama, that stuck energy that's often floating around them.
So when people have this stuck energy you talk about, how does it affect them, and what kind of challenges do they have from that?
Well, imagine someone who is angry all the time. They're just constantly angry. They're always in this place where there's things that make them angry. They're frustrated, they get short-tempered. It's usually because there's an energetic parasite in their energetic field. So let's imagine something like you take a plate of chicken out of the fridge and you put it in the kitchen. Then your front doorbell goes, and you go to the front door and you spend about half an hour chatting to the neighbor. You come back to the kitchen, there's a fly in the kitchen. Where did that fly come from? All the windows were closed, but that fly could smell that particular smell of that chicken and came out. If you leave that chicken there, guess what that fly is going to do? It's going to invite two of its friends along. And suddenly you've got 3 flies in the kitchen buzzing around this plate of food.
So it becomes like a cancerous issue, right?
So it's the same with us. So if we have a poor energetic health, poor energetic field, we start to invite in these energetic parasites. And those parasites start to multiply an energetic field. Now, no matter what that person is doing energetically to make themselves feel good, they might be going to mindfulness meditations, they might be doing, sunset walks, but that parasite doesn't want that person to be in that happy place, because it's not the energy that they feed off. These parasites aren't evil. They're just doing their jobs. They're just like flies. So they got to do everything they can to keep that person in that energy of anger. So that person will go away, have a great day, come home, trip over the doormat, bang their knee, and guess what? They're back in that place of anger. So when I work with my clients, I really clear out all those low vibrations, those low energetic parasites that are feeding on that low energy, seal up that person's energy structure to allow them to heal and get rid of their anger, get rid of their trauma, whatever it might be.
So you help them find a way to become better people, right?
Absolutely.
So at the same time, let's try and bring it back to...
It's like closing a door when the wind's blowing, right? You want to close the door to stop the draft coming in. Mm-hmm. We've got to keep those doors closed, right, at certain times, so we're not open to everything that's out there.
But at the same time, how would you now apply this to a day-to-day business entrepreneur? So there's many entrepreneurs out there right now who are starting off. Some days are better than others, or they may have a good day or a bad day, and some challenges come about. When you're on the high, it's brilliant. You're riding that high wave, right? Nothing's stopping you. You're making deal, you're closing, you're enjoying the gratefulness of your business. The real question is, when things go wrong in their business life, how do people take it home? How do they deal with it within their personal life? How does it affect their trauma? And how does someone like yourself come in there to help bridge that gap and find a solution? And I know there's 2 or 3 questions in that as well.
There's a lot of questions.
But I wanted to give you the context behind it before we start tackling it one by one.
Okay, so
I'm more concerned. The overall objective of this question is predominantly based around really an entrepreneur, when they've had their bad days, when that trauma's coming on board, and how does it affect their personal life? And what can talking to someone like yourself, support them in the process?
Well, the entrepreneurial runs that roller coaster of life, don't they? Mm-hmm. They have those, like you mentioned, really good days and really bad days. And that's true for everybody. There's always the ups and the downs. Mm-hmm. And the thing that happens is, when you're not dealing with the emotional traumas, the issues that you have in your life, you tend to get stuck in those off days. Your energy tends to drop when you get stuck in that place where it's really low and you struggle to get out of it.
Definitely, but also being an entrepreneur sometimes is quite a lonely experience.
Absolutely.
People have to go to events or networking events to meet people. If most people are entrepreneurs, and people maybe listening to this and watching this at home, they'll be on their own. They're starting a small business. They're working on their own with limited conversations with people outside of their remit. And that can be a very deadly space to be in when you're on your own.
Absolutely. And that's why you actually have to force yourself to get out. You have to force yourself to meet other people, because there's always somebody that you can speak to. There is. Sometimes we just feel that we're alone. We feel that because no one else can understand us. But every entrepreneur goes through the same sort of journey. Yes, the situation will be different, but the journey will be very, very similar.
So an expert like yourself, who is an entrepreneur, who often does work by themselves, how do you deal with the roller coasters that come with it?
I get outside, and I got out of my own way. I had to step.
Before you move on, that I'm interested about. How do you get out of your own way?
So people look at me now and say, oh, what a natural networker you are, how you can go up to speak to anybody. Go back 10 years ago, there's no ways I would open my mouth in a room full of people. I would be that networker that stand on the side of the room with my cup of coffee, hoping that no one would speak to me, which just doesn't make sense in the world of networking. And I had to get out of my own way and go, okay, Oliver, these people in the same boat as you are, they don't know anybody, so they don't know you, so just go and say hello and see where the conversation goes.
And it also comes down to, and I've been networking for many years, in the beginning it's like the fear of rejection.
Absolutely.
You go and say hello to somebody and they may not like your business, they may not like what you're talking about, or you might not find commonality. It's very difficult to build commonality in a very short space of time and still add value in the conversation. Otherwise it becomes like you're selling to somebody very quickly, right? And that makes it very, very hard to watch when you see new people doing it as well.
Because they want to sell. They're so desperate to sell. And of course, whenever you're being sold to, your first answer is always no, right? Unless it's something you desperately want and you need.
But even then, you're still justifying it to yourself if you really want it or not. It's like, I suffer from buyer's remorse all the time. I'm very impulsive to purchase something, but at the same time, I'll have buyer's remorse very quickly if I haven't taken the time to logically make that decision to purchase.
Exactly. Because also we will sometimes see it and then have that FOMO that actually we need it when actually we don't. So that's the time we have that remorse. But the other times when we just shut down no matter what the person's saying because they're trying too hard to push something onto us. And yes, we could potentially see the value of it, but it's actually triggering us to say no. So we don't actually like being sold to. We like to learn about products and about the benefits are and how they can change us and help us and make us grow. I think people are becoming aware to that. We're starting to learn that it's not necessarily the product, it's the person behind the product.
So the business has evolved now in terms of how people are working, right?
Business has to evolve. The way our grandparents did business was very authoritarian. You did it a certain way. It was A, B, C, D. That was it. That was how you did business. There was no gray areas. This was the way business was done. We're in the 21st century now, and the world has changed completely.
Definitely.
We don't do business the same way.
We don't. The market's evolved. The funding has evolved. Like pretty much we work in this space as well. So traditionally what people did with their portfolios and lending and business funding was one method of doing it. We spoke about this before off camera. Traditionally, you'll go and see a bank manager and they'll give you a loan. Now you have to look at other angles within that to fund your business. Do you look at taking other leverage from somewhere else? Do you borrow money from a different way? Not necessarily your traditional bank loan as such, but do you look at other avenues that are now available in the marketplace which weren't traditionally available? Invoice financing, factoring, merchant card lending. These are things that we as a business now have to start selling to clients. But then the challenge there is they're not educated in this product. And if you start coming across selling, naturally they're going to shut down.
But that's you answer your own question there. It's about educating them. Why they need the service, why going to their bank manager is actually probably the worst thing, because the bank manager put the number in the computer and the computer will say no.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Definitely. We read a statistic recently that 3 out of 5 people apply for the wrong product when they do it themselves. But by going through a brokerage and coming and speaking to someone like ourselves, we'll educate you and show you where you need to be. Whether you write the business with us or not, it's irrelevant. Just take the advice, take the understanding that this is where you need to be and the reasons why. Pretty much why people see a coach like, and I say a coach in a very liberal term for yourself. There's,
Yes,
you're more than just a coach. There's more to it than that, which I really want to dive into later. But what I'm saying, on a global perspective, this is where the market's evolving, and evolution is the key right now.
Absolutely. You have to evolve. You got to change. We're constantly growing, constantly changing. I always say to my clients, the day you stop changing, the day you stop evolving, is the day you lie down in that box and they bury you.
And then how do you also do, so you mentioned trauma and fear earlier on before we started this, when we started this podcast. How do you deal with people who have a fear of change?
That's a big one, because people are sometimes stuck in that cycle of not wanting to change. But then you have to really explain to them that if you're doing the same thing today that you did yesterday and it's not giving you the results that you want, then you've got to change.
But then the counter argument would be that their previous generation did it and it worked for them. So why isn't it working for me?
Just think of the speed of technology these days. Think of how you can order a book. Now, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it might have taken 2 or 3 days to get to you.
If not longer.
If not longer, right? Maybe it's a specialist book, it'll take even longer. Maybe it came from the States, right? And you had to go buy.
You get the yellow pages out, you find a local bookshop, and
Right.
you run through the process, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, you find the book you want, you click buy, and it's downloaded onto your phone or your tablet, and you can start reading or listening to it immediately.
Immediately, right?
Right? And so we have to take our business world into the same sort of speed. Otherwise, we're just going to be left behind.
And we found in the same space that we work in right now, and I put it back to a real life working example, that you may have a small family office and a father set up a business, buying property, investing elsewhere. He had a strategy at the time, whether it would buy, some cases it would be your traditional 2-up, 2-down houses, for example. He had his strategy of buying certain type of product and renting out and dealing with it certain ways. Then the son or the daughter comes in, second generation, trying to replicate it, but they're not getting the same result. Thus, they are blaming the product and the world, not understanding that the challenge sits with the strategy. Now, the father's strategy worked 30, 40 years ago because the market was a different position. And the challenge we're facing right now, and hopefully by people watching this can educate themselves, that the market's evolving. There's more than one way to skin a cat. And that's where we're trying to really talk to people like yourselves from a different perspective, not necessarily the business cycle perspective, but more the psychology behind it on why evolution and change is the most important thing in business.
And it's the same in my field, sort of energetic, spiritual coaching, whatever you want to call it. There are techniques that worked. They worked in the 19th century. They worked in the 20th century. They still work today, but they are incredibly slow. No one wants to go and see someone, 50 times. They want to get that
Quick fix. Yeah.
That energy exchange, that a bit of advice, that release of their fear, their trauma, their block, the energetic block, their belief, as quickly as possible. No one wants to spend months and months working on it. Now, there'll be a few that will, but most people don't have the time.
But the ones that come back regularly, there's either their problem, or so I say problem in a timid sense, that their challenge or issue is not being resolved, or they want connection. And now they're scared because they've got rapport with you. They feel they need to be with you longer.
And this is where I actually tell them that, hey, it's time now you stand on your own 2 feet, right? You have enough tools. You've got now going to learn to use those tools, right? So I give my clients lots of tools they can take into daily life that they can utilize that are going to help them be better at what they do.
So what one tool would you give somebody if someone's watching this right now, one snippet in your tool could someone take away saying, yeah, I can try and apply this today to get my result?
The power of your voice. Use your voice to speak about what you want or you want to achieve. Right? Have we ever had this situation where you've written something on a piece of paper and it's going to be a speech or something, and then you've said, I better practice this. I'm going to read out loud to a partner, a business colleague, and you read out loud and you go, oh, that actually doesn't make sense. And you start realizing as you read it out loud, it doesn't actually make sense. And what you thought was really good inside your head is actually not good when you read it out loud. And that's when we start to talk, we start to manifest things. If we don't talk, we don't manifest. So by me repeating something that I want to achieve in my life, not necessarily to anybody in particular, but to myself, but actually speaking the words, I'm actually adding energy into it, and I'm actually clarifying it and crystallizing it in a certain way.
So you're talking to your subconscious on a level which the mind understands.
Well,
You know,
you're talking to yourself, or you're talking to somebody else. Doesn't matter who it is.
even if it's to yourself, if you say you're going to have a great day, the day will be great. If you,
Absolutely. Yes.
you know, there are some people, no matter how great their world is, they'll find the pitfalls in it, no matter what's going on in their world, which is great. Each their own. You know, I'm not saying that's the right or the wrong way of doing it, but at the same time, there are positivity in whatever you see. You know, someone told me a while ago, just stop and smell the roses. Take time.
Yeah.
The day's great. There's enough going on in your world. Take stock just to appreciate where you are today, whether that's in business or personal, your marriage, your relationship, time with your kids, loved ones, friends, family, enjoying a podcast right now. You know, we could be sitting here trying to have a coaching session about how to treat someone's trauma alive, but that's not the outcome. The outcome right now is to stop and enjoy this process.
Well, and it is that joyful conversation. So, and it's the way you change it, because you've got to change it. No one else can change you apart from you. You can be offered a whole bunch of tools and choose whether they're physical, practical tools, or they're mental tools, whether they're emotional tools. Doesn't matter what the tool is. Mm-hmm. You actually have the choice to use that tool or not. And only you can change you. So I'll give you a quick example. Yesterday, I had the rat catcher come around to the house to check up on a trap they'd set up because there was potentially a rat. Mm-hmm. He was parked in the driveway, so I squeezed in the driveway, and as I drove in the driveway, I scratched the side of my car. Got out of the car, I was like, oh, that didn't sound too good. And sure enough, there's a great big scratch down the side of the car. No, that's fixable. I then took him into the house, took him to the back where the trap was, and I said, wow, look at the sun. It's a beautiful day. The sun is actually amazing. And he turned around and said, how do you go from scratching your car to having a beautiful day? I went, well, the car's fixable. This beautiful day, this moment right now when the sun is shining, this beautiful warmth on this sort of winter day is amazing. And he went, yeah, it really is.
See, that's the positivity, right? But at the same time, you could meet someone new off the street that you've never met before, and they might think you're a bit airy-fairy about it, right? When it comes to that much positivity and that much joy. I've known you for a while, so I appreciate your personality, right? Let's not try and dismiss what you're doing, but there is an element of, you know, there's joy, there's pleasure, and there's happiness there. Some people take it in a very negative way because they're just not prepared for that level of joyness in their life right now.
And so when I look at those people, those are the ones with the most parasites in their energy field. Right. Those are the ones with those little gremlins that are whispering sweet nothings into their ear saying, you don't deserve happiness, you don't deserve change, you're an imposter, you're living in fear, you don't deserve anything, even though you yourself, your inner knowingness goes, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to make this work. And
but there's self-sabotage, right, to go with it. And there are also a lot of people, I'm not sure if people who are watching this will agree or disagree with this, and I'd like to hear their comments about it. It's that you're in control of your own narrative. And a lot of people forget that they're in control of their own narrative. Whether you're in a relationship with your parents, your partners, your kids, your loved ones, your business partners, you're still in control of your own narrative. It depends how much power you're willing to give away.
And this is a lot. People give a lot of power away to other people or to other beliefs. If we look at just the idea of beliefs, most beliefs you have in this world are somebody else's belief.
Definitely.
And that comes through your family, your schooling, your early work career, the other entrepreneurs you might have met who...
But then back to the entrepreneur, we want to talk about the entrepreneur side of things, right? Most people start business on their own, whether it's an established company or they're trying to do something different, right? There's always that element of somebody in the background saying it's not going to work. And thus that parasite is growing there within themselves. Is my business going to grow? Is it going to fail? There's always on that edge of the line, right?
And that parasite usually comes from your close friends and family who think that you don't deserve it or you can't do it.
Or that you haven't got the skill set to prove it.
And how many of us actually do have the skill set when we first start out? We don't. But we're prepared to learn. We're prepared to change, prepared to grow.
No, but you pay for the right advice. Now,
you pay for the right advice, exactly.
As an entrepreneur, you start off with the basic concept of a business. You know, I've worked for somebody for a number of years, had a great experience there, learned a lot. Now, how can I apply elements from there over here? You don't just wake up one morning and start a business. Some people do. Fair on them, you know, that's really great. For me, my journey was slightly different. I worked for a firm for a number of years and started my own business recently. With ATZ Finance. For me, that was just a great learning curve. And the great thing about that was now I'm not stagnant in a role, which I wasn't growing. And now I'm growing on a daily basis, meeting new clients, people like yourself, having the opportunity to do something like this. It's not your standard business that has the opportunity to sit there. And just put some information out in the world, whether it's educational or someone can learn something from me. For me, that's just the win we're looking for. And ultimately is, how can you grow and evolve on a daily basis and keep yourself sharp? And the way you do that is by getting the right advice, by getting a coach. Like, I've got a business coach, we've got a life coach. We're talking about working with yourself as well and for other projects. And it's how can collaboration work? And it's a willingness to be open. I think that's the biggest difference
I think
here.
It's to be open and to not necessarily take everybody's advice. Because sometimes there's great advice out there, but it's not right for you right now.
Their opinion is suitable for their opinion at that particular moment when things may be going correct.
Yes.
It's like when you're having one of the best days, if you think that the world's unstoppable, but when you're down, everything is against you. So no matter what you shape or do, there's always a challenge, right?
And that's where you've got to step out of your own way, right?
Yeah.
And do something positive about it, right? Because you have to break that state. You have to really break it.
But it's
so
also
a lot of we go to sort of like hypnosis and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What often they'll do is they'll take you into a trance where you'll do some amazing trance work in a deep state, and they'll bring you up and they'll go, "Hey, Nelesh, what day is it today?" And you'll go, "Why does he ask me what day it is?" Or "Where are your keys?" Or "What are you doing this evening?" And you'll completely be thrown off about all that unconscious work that you've just done. So it gets stuck, you stayed in that space. So you'll be able to utilize that without your mind getting involved in it again. So when we're having those bad days, we have to break state. We have to stop the energy. We have to do something different, something completely different. And it might be, hey, put the phone down, shut the laptop, and go outside for 10 minutes. You're breaking the state.
You're breaking the pattern, right?
You're breaking that pattern.
Pattern interrupt.
Different terms for it, yeah.
But at the same time, it's okay to have that moment of not being okay. And a lot
Absolutely.
of a lot of people forget that when someone's having not the best day, whether it's in business or it's personal, the books aren't going the right way, the sales aren't coming through, liquidity is not where it's meant to be, the balance sheet isn't looking great. It's okay to have that moment. Then you reflect, you understand it, and then you look around for the right advice.
And my advice there would be to feel the emotion. To feel that emotion. What does it feel like to feel that the phone's not ringing, that the sale you just got has actually not come through and they've gone with somebody else? To feel that emotion and to accept it and then go, okay, I can choose to stay in this emotion, or I can choose to go, I learned from that emotion, I learned from that feeling, I got the understanding, and now I can move on.
Channel it somewhere different, right?
Well, just think about it. We're very good at hanging on to those low elements when we don't need to. Have you ever put your hand in the fire and burnt yourself? Maybe you were barbecuing and you burnt yourself in the fire.
In the oven.
In the oven, you touched something really hot.
Yeah, of course. But you don't hold it constantly, do you? You let go.
5 minutes later, you didn't go stick your hand in the oven or the fire again to see if it was still hot. But it doesn't mean you hate fire or hate the oven.
No.
You still can appreciate the beauty of the flame, the heat, the warmth, the ambience, the cooking ability, right? But you're not going to put your hand in the fire.
But that was a situation that presented itself.
But often when we're in these low situations, when life's against us, we tend to want to go back to trying to understand it some more. You don't need to understand the fire anymore once you burnt yourself. You don't need to understand it another layer. You know it's hot.
But people don't dissect the problem to its nth degree, not appreciate there was a problem, there was a challenge, and move on.
Yeah.
Like in business, you could have a situation where your cash flow is not great. And I bring it back to business to make it relatable for people out there. You can be running a company, you're running a business, and some months are better than others. Your supplier or one of your suppliers who you work with, you sell to, hasn't paid you back on time. So how do you deal with that situation? That's a real life problem right now. You sold some products or services, you expect to get paid at the end of the month, that paycheck hasn't come through, yet you have to service your debt anyway.
Well, that's where you guys come in, isn't it?
Exactly. So that's one end. We don't want to, I'm not saying that's the ideal way every business needs to be, but these are common business challenges. You're a builder, you've bought in materials, you've done the job, yet the quantity surveyor hasn't signed that site off for X, Y, Z reason. Thus, the owner of that land is not, or the project, not going to pay you because the QS hasn't signed it off. Yet you've still got a team of people that need to be fed. You are not responsible just for yourself. You are responsible for all the people that work for you. They've got families, they've got parents, kids, wives, husbands, all that kind of. That sense of responsibility we find working with businesses is the biggest catalyst or the biggest gremlin, the biggest virus you talk about. The emotional trauma comes from there. It's not the business not succeeding. The biggest challenge an entrepreneur has is people they're responsible for. And
Absolutely,
for them,
yeah.
that is the biggest gremlin right now, emotionally, physically, mentally. And this is where problems in business come home because of that level. And I'm not saying every business is the same way, But that's the level of involvement they have because they have a passion to go with it. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I think that you've got to have that passion, right? If you don't have that passion, right, you're not going to keep going. You've got to have that passion.
And that's an employee, you can walk away, right?
An employees are always replaceable. And it's sad, but it's true. Everybody is replaceable. But the person who's heading up that organization, heading in that journey, is not replaceable.
It's their vision.
It's their vision, right?
They can outsource it. They have a team around them. They'll have a management team.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, it was their goal, their vision in the beginning. That woke up, right?
And I think for most entrepreneurs, what they sometimes fail to do is to share that vision with their team.
And a lot of entrepreneurs won't talk about the challenges they've got.
Because remember, if you've got a team, you built up your finance department, you build up your sales staff, you build up all these people around you. If you haven't shared your vision with them, they will do the bare minimum. If they're not excited for you when you talk about your vision, they're the wrong person for the business.
So you use the term vision. A lot of people may use it goal.
Goal, yeah.
Goal, let's put it back to
same thing.
Let's make it open to other people right now. So looking at a goal at the end of it, what's your primary factor? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes the business drive? What made you start it in the beginning? I think that's the first question I tend to ask most entrepreneurs when I start working with them. What made you start your business? Forget the numbers, forget the finance, how we can support and help you. What made you start this particular business in this particular sector? Why? And
Why?
For me, that is really interesting.
Well, from my side of things, it was because it excited me that I could help other people become better versions of themselves.
Is it because you came from a point of trauma yourself?
Absolutely. We all have trauma. You'd be lying if you said you didn't have any trauma in this world. We have trauma, but we all experience trauma differently. So something that might be really, really traumatic for me, you might go, what? Why is that traumatic for you? That's like a walk in the park. But it's the way we perceive it, our perception, how our mind perceives it is the big thing.
Okay, so that's a trauma, I'll say a trauma coach to make it in simple terms, without disrespecting the product. What's the biggest trauma you've come across so far for yourself? And how did you overcome it? If you're okay answering it.
Yeah, for myself, I'm going to go back to one of my first businesses, which was mountaineering. I was a rock climbing instructor, and I started a business. And one business partner was spending lots of money. Me, on the other hand, wasn't seeing how that money that was being spent was being reinvested in the company. But the situation didn't know enough, didn't have enough team around me that could help dig us out of the hole. And eventually the business went completely flat. Right?
Because you didn't know your numbers.
Didn't know my numbers. Well, I knew the numbers. I knew we weren't doing well, but I just didn't know. There was no real advice out there that I could get. There was no other people around me that were in a similar situation. It was we did okay actually, but we didn't do what we should have been doing.
So from that was a traumatic experience in the sense that the business didn't survive. That was
and you because you feel responsible for it. But through that failure. Through that experience of trauma, through that failure, I learned so much about what I should have done, what the things I should have said, the contracts that should have been signed.
So you learned business acumen.
Yeah, exactly. Which my background is rock climbing, right? It's not exactly business.
It's not business, but
let's be honest.
You land on your feet, don't you? You don't.
But you always do.
Yeah,
always do.
You don't always start off one part of your life and say, "This is who I'm going to be."
And you've got to take the chance, right?
Yep.
I think there's too much. Yes, it is traumatic starting a business. Yes, there's lots of stuff that suddenly has to be done and you don't get it. You don't understand it. Oh, you maybe you do, okay? And maybe you studied that and that's fantastic. That's great. But for me, I didn't understand it. And so that whole process was traumatic. And another entrepreneur would go like, well, that's easy. That's what we learned in business masterclass at school. Or
but some people come from a background. They do an MBA at Stanford.
Yeah.
Right. So
very different. Yeah.
Right. So if you come from that background, your definition of starting a business is quite simple.
And it's not traumatic, but
you've
for
got
me it was.
They've got the blueprint, right? But for someone, traumatic experience could be going to in a relationship or coming out of a relationship.
Well, I think if we return it back to business, is if you're in a relationship, have you balanced it with your physical relationship? So you have this entity, this business, the relationship you have there, but is it balanced with the partner in your life, with the family, with your wife, with your kids, with your husband? Is it balanced there? Because often we get so excited about our business that we forget about everybody else. And we're working late. We're coming home late. We're leaving for the office early or for the meeting early or for the networking early. We're not spending that quality time with our families.
And then people wonder why their home life is disrupted by the business.
Yeah.
And we've seen that a few times with clients because now I bring it back to numbers all the time. If the numbers aren't great, people are putting more and more hours into the business. If the business is flourishing and thriving, that entrepreneur has stepped away slightly. Instead of working 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, he or she's putting in 6, 7, 4 hours a day because the business is ticking over.
And also, once you've got the stage, you start to do all the jobs that the entrepreneur is not good at. Maybe it's the bookkeeping, maybe it's the social media, maybe it's the writing the business plans. You start to be able to afford to bring experts in to do that work for you.
And then I was reading this book, it's in strategy. I was talking to one of my coaches about it. There's these tasks that people do. There's a £10 task, there's a £1 task, there's a £100 task, and a £1,000 task. Right?
Yeah.
So within relative order. As an entrepreneur, when your business is established and set up correctly, do you want to be focusing on the £1, £10 tasks? Or do you want to work on the £1,000 tasks that you know you can control and get a better result for the business on? So that's where you start paying for experts. You start having a life coach. You start having a business coach. You start having a mentor in terms of growing the business. You need to take external advice on how to grow it.
Absolutely.
And the same situation like Tiger Woods, best golfer around, right? Many would agree. Why does he have a coach? You know, if he's top of the food chain, the best that he's ever been, why does he have a coach? Because you can never see your own swing. You think you're good at it, but there's always an element, and it's that 1% tweak that makes the biggest change. We're not asking you to move heaven and earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to do boxing as a kid.
Okay.
And, I got to the final round, and I needed the coach. I needed someone to sit me at the when the bell went, sit on that, have my little break. We'll be getting prepped again. And he went, you've done this plenty of times. You'll be okay. And that was the advice he gave me. And what I wanted to hear was just go out and punch him. Right? That's what I need to hear.
You need that support.
And you need that support. You need someone to tell you, because in that moment, you need someone just to push you that little bit more.
You need someone to make that, okay, you know what, you leverage slightly higher in this business right now. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just have a backup plan.
Yeah.
You know, people come to us with solutions within their business as well. You know, we're doing really well right now. Is this a good time to borrow? And I tell people the same thing. When your business is thriving, that is the time you get your credit lines set up. Because when the business is on its decline, you're on your back foot. But if you have these systems in place prior to a dip or a flush, you set up. So have systems in place. This is where working with a coach, or especially a business coach.
This is why I like working with business coaches, because I can help their clients that are going to that next level, that want to grow, that want to reach the next level, to actually achieve that by clearing some of the baggage they're dragging along, some of those traumas, some of those fears.
100%.
You know, and that's where they really need that, just to clear the way a bit.
What I really want to know is, like, Oliver, you've got a very positive attitude to life right now. You're always looking for the good in everything right now. What I really want to know is, what ethos or what tagline do you go by? And I've heard this before, but I really want to just for the viewers, I really want to understand this is really inspiring for me as well.
I was thinking the other day, so a lot of people are surviving to live. And there's some people that are living just to survive. And I really think, well, that's the wrong way to look at it. You've got to...
That's a lot of information there, isn't it?
You've got to... Are you living to live? Right? And that's the key thing. You've got to be about life, about taking those chances, about stepping forward, about being in your passion, about finding the enjoyment in life. Or are you going to just survive? Because we're very good at surviving. Humanity is very good at surviving.
That's human intuition, right?
It's built into our DNA.
Survival instinct. Survival instinct. That's what we're...
That's the base level. That's level number one. Mm-hmm. Let's start living. Let's live. Let's really live. And sometimes living means doing things that you're not comfortable doing.
That's very uncomfortable. Most people living in that space is the most uncomfortable place to be, because they're growing the most then, like any business. If you look at any business that's expanding and going places, right, that growth period is the most uncomfortable position they're in. They're leveraged, they're emotionally tied in, everyone's playing flat out. But the win at the other end, when it goes well,
is incredible.
Like for at the end of it, it's amazing, right?
Right. You're there.
The high is amazing.
The high. And you know what? That high won't last forever. And guess what? It's not the goal. It's the journey. It's the journey. That's the living part. Yes, you're going to celebrate the goal, but guess what? It's like buying a brand new car. It's great until the first scratch comes on. And by the way, the moment you bought it, there's a better version out there. There's a new model. There's a faster...
but then that's evolution. Like
that's evolution.
Like you said at the beginning of the podcast, like you also mentioned, evolution is the biggest thing right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And everything around you is evolving. And sometimes...
Never stops.
It never stops, no. But then are you evolving with it? Or are you fighting it?
And I think these days we've got to evolve faster than ever before. We don't have time to sit about and think about evolving. We should be looking at ways to involve ourselves and our businesses to keep them current. Because if we don't keep moving forward, we're going to be left behind. Though I hate to say this, but those businesses are still running on grandfather's strategy are losing out. They've got to change.
And that's where they need to take new advice on and do things differently. And I say this, bringing it back to business again, they need to speak to a broker. They need to speak to someone who's a specialist in this sector, where the vested interest is not the banks or the lenders, it's the client. And a lot of people forget that when they ask for advice, thinking that someone else's interest is the most primary factor behind it all. We want to focus on the fact that we serve the client for the client to make sure the client gets whatever they need to get them over the line. Yeah. And sometimes the harsh truth is not what people want to hear.
You know what? A lot of clients expect me to sugarcoat the answers I give them, but I don't.
But you can't though. In
Because
business, you can't.
You've got to tell them like it is. You don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be, but you've got to tell them the truth. This is where you need to go to. This is what you're hanging on to. We've got to clear that. We've got to shift that. We've got to change that.
This is what you need to get rid of.
And if people choose not to do that, I say that's fantastic because it's your journey. I'm actually only responsible for me. All right. Do I care about you? Absolutely. Am I you? No, I'm not. Do I care if you choose to do something completely silly? Well, yeah, I'll have compassion for you and understanding, but it doesn't affect me, so it's okay. Right? I'm very happy for people not to take my advice because they don't have to. No problem at all. But then don't turn around in a year's time and go, I'm still stuck in the same place because I didn't want to use that particular tool. I didn't want to make that change.
It's the fear of change. And it's
it always comes back to that, doesn't it?
It always comes back to the fear of change and the follow through. Yeah. If we can sit there for hours and hours, discuss the strategy, work out the numbers, work out the business, work out the plan, work out the emotion, but unless there's an element of actual physical change.
I used to work with an incredible lady. She was very strange, very weird, but she used to do tarot card readings, right? A lot of people rely on them. I think they're dated. I don't think you should. I think it's giving away your power. Don't give away your power to something like that. And this gentleman came up to one of these shows and said, how much for a reading? And she was like, should I charge him £40 or £50? £40 or £50? £40 or 50? Eventually he said £40. He said, okay, I'm just going to the cash machine to draw some money. He came back, paid her the £40. And his first question was, I have two businesses. I've been offered 5.6 million for this one business, but I just can't seem to sign the paperwork. Right? And I don't know whether it's actually worth that because I think it's only worth 4 million. And so they were in the same situation. They both had abundance issues. One which was only £10, but one was £1 million, right?
But principle was the same.
Same principle, right? How do you break through that and actually make a decision and go with it? Right? Are you prepared to put yourself on the line and go, no, it's 5.6 million, or is it? Or are you going to go back a step and go, well, okay, we'll give it to you for 4?
Becomes ethical and a moral issue at that point.
Well, look, it's very simple. Ethics is very simple. If it's hurting me, don't do it. If it's hurting you, don't do it. Right? Okay, so if I'm causing you pain, then I'm not doing the right thing. Whether it be emotional, whether it be mental, whether it be financial, whether it be, physical, then I shouldn't be doing it. But the same thing, if that's causing myself that pain, then I also shouldn't be doing it. And that's my very simple way of compass of going through life.
The moral compass to go with it. And
don't moral, ethical, we want to look at it, label it, is don't cause anybody any pain. But now, that doesn't mean you might not cause them discomfort, okay? Because through discomfort, growth takes place. But I don't want to be knocking you down to a place where you can't get up from.
And some people tend to get a kick out of it in some businesses, whether it's a takeover.
And that, I would say, is the 19th century model of doing business, where you climb on top of other people to get to the top. And we're seeing right now that that model doesn't work because guess what? There's more hands pulling you down than are supporting you up there.
There is definitely.
And so when we look at business in the sort of 21st century, we look at it as this playing field where everybody has an input. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take John the T-Boy's input, but he's been heard. Right?
Everyone has an opinion, And there's mediums and social platforms where people can get this information out on, which is changing the way business is being done right now. And reputations are built and broken digitally right now.
Well, I say what the biggest thing that an entrepreneur needs, the skill they need the most right now, is to be able to lead, because we're not short of information. Information anybody can get hold of. You know, with your phone, you can get hold of more information than when we're growing up as kids. You had to go to the library and go out books and things like that. Right now, information we've got. So it's not information, it's the ability to lead other people. That is the key thing, to allow your team to buy into your goal, your vision, your plan, and then to work together to achieve that.
And be humble and grow a business which is suitable in that process to go with it. Now, on that note, I'd like to wrap up today's podcast and say thank you very much to my good friend, Oliver. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's been amazing. I hope you guys managed to get an insight into what other businesses do, not necessarily what we do, but what other businesses do right now, and how to take a different approach on doing the same thing. Whether it's a life coach, a business coach, or even a holistic coach like Oliver, I would highly recommend reach out to him, have a conversation, send us a DM, follow the channel. It would be really appreciated. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.